Bringing in Dan Hurley, though, I think would definitely be a Pelinka-driven decision, and getting the guy that he feels is the best head coach for the job for the present and for the future post LeBron James.
What do you make of the Lakers have honed in on JJ Redick only to find out the Lakers have honed in on Dan Hurley? I am so confused by all of this. What has happened here? Got any theories?
It's very possible that they successfully have just buried this news, that they actually did it with all misdirection. It's also possible, that's theory one, that they actually were successful in that. Okay. Theory two is that there is a split within the Lakers organization and leaks are coming from different places, and maybe Pelinka, who doesn't talk to a lot of people, was the one who had Hurley in mind the whole time, and other factions of the front office wanted Redick throughout. That's possible. It's possible that Hurley emerged recently as a candidate, as somebody that they could pluck away from UConn, and that changed things. I think those are three, sensible possibilities. And I think the fourth possibility here is that Dan Hurley is simply using the Lakers as leverage to get an even bigger deal from UConn. He signed a 7-year or a 6-year, $32 million contract before last season. So after they won one title, but before they went back to back. It's possible he may try to leverage them into more money and just go back to UConn. That's possible as well.
Yeah, but he can't screw around with that, though, Kev, because, every one of those UConn kids has already got their bags packed and is already being offered $1 million to go play everywhere else across the country, right?
If he leaves, the transfer portal opens for them right away. Yeah.
Right.
But UConn can't screw around with that either.
No, right.
They need to do what they can to keep Hurley, considering he is an unbelievable coach.
Oh, for sure.
He's unbelievable.
I am so confused. So the weird thing is this. Over the last, 2 or 3 days, so I subscribed to Mark Stein's Substack, and I read this thing yesterday, just kind of made me perk up. And this is before all the Dan Hurley stuff happened. And he had just mentioned that, I think in his deal, it mentioned that, most people, I guess, aware of the situation, think that the preferred choice of Anthony Davis is James Borrego.
Why would Anthony Davis prefer James Borrego, though? Isn't that so random? AD wants James Borrego, huh?
No, it was something. It was something about the time in New Orleans, or something that they were there when he first came into the league, or something or rather. In fact, in fairness to Mark Stein, I don't want to misquote him, so let me find this and then I'll tell you exactly what it says.
I believe Stein did have that in there, but it's just so interesting to me that AD would prefer an assistant coach from his rookie season.
Okay, here we go. As first reported here on May 27th, it's now an open secret in league coaching circles that the Lakers would still want Borrego on the coaching staff if Redick indeed proves to be their choice as a head coach. Yet I've heard skepticism about the Pelicans' readiness to let Borrego, currently an associate head coach in New Orleans under Willie Green, make that sort of a lateral move while still under contract. Can the Lakers get Borrego to go if they don't make him the head coach? And then it says that those two had kind of separated themselves. And then he brought up even Monty Williams. Anyways, he said, it has been suggested in some corners of the league that Lakers star big man Anthony Davis probably prefers for Borrego to get the job over Redick. Not only has Borrego been a head coach twice already in Orlando and Charlotte compared to Redick's lack of head coaching experience, but he and Davis overlapped briefly during Borrego's first stint with the Pelicans after Davis was drafted number 1 overall in 2012. And so that's what was said about that. Anyways, he also mentions in that article and others over the course of the last couple of days, which I just perked up about, that J.J. Redick is now a full-time media member, and J.J. Redick obviously just called this finals game tonight, and that J.J. Redick has a vote, and he did not vote Anthony Davis in any of the 10 slots for all defense. And the fact that was like bandied about, I was like, that sounds petty, but that is a thing. It
totally
is
reasonable. Totally.
It's a thing, right?
It is. Yep.
It's
totally
a thing.
Is.
If the guy has
players,
a vote.
Players, look, I've had players hit me up about my votes saying, like, what, you didn't do this?
Right.
Like, really? I've had players do that to me. And it's like players I've never spoken to before, players I've never contacted in my life. Like, they've contacted me on 2 or 3 occasions in my seven or so seasons voting.
Right.
And it's like, so I would bet someone as high profile as JJ Redick,
Anthony Davis for sure knows.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yep.
And this is a guy that says, I'm the best defensive player in the league.
Yep. And players
I don't get the credit
motivation.
that I deserve. And then he sits there and goes, and I don't get the credit I deserve because of guys like JJ Redick. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Well, did you see, speaking about the Hurley side of things here?
Yeah.
Did you see the post that I made quoting the Mike Francesca interview that he had with Dan Hurley on Wednesday? Francesca interviewed Dan Hurley for his podcast on Wednesday.
Oh,
and
yes.
And in that interview, Hurley brought up NBA coaching without even being asked about it. And what he said was, I do aspire one day, if the right NBA situation were to come along, to really testing myself. And then Francesca kind of interjected, and then Hurley continued, where an organization wants a tone setter to come in and instill a culture with young players in an organization that wants to pursue championships. The young players comment there was very interesting there.
Yeah, it feels like, and it also, because when you were going through the different machinations of this, it does feel like if they brought in Dan Hurley, and just listening to Woj describe it on ESPN this morning, that it's like a stake in the ground. This is a Lakers decision, not a decision made with LeBron in mind. ... But Dan Hurley would be the best for the development of Bronny. And I'm like, what? Like,
I know.
Who cares about the 55th pick in the draft? Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah,
They're like, it'd be great for Max Christie and Bronny. Like, who cares? What are we doing? Nobody hires their head coach to develop the 55th pick in the draft. What? It just felt like a olive branch throwing out to LeBron, right? Like, hey, we know that you want your podcast co-host, but we're going to hire this guy in complete defiance of you. But it's actually the best thing ever for your kid. What? What are we doing?
It's so good. I mean, I think look, everything that's been reported, especially by local Lakers media, I believe to be true, in that LeBron and Clutch have lost power. And they've lost say in what decisions are made. And that's happened ever since the Russell Westbrook trade, where they pushed for that. And ever since then, it does seem as if Clutch has lost power within the Lakers. With that said, if you're drafting Bronny, if you're buying a second-round pick after he was not good at USC, clearly you're doing that because of LeBron's presence. Even if the influence isn't there, the influence is merely because he's under contract on your team. So there's still influence there. Bringing in Dan Hurley, though, I think would definitely be a Pelinka-driven decision, and getting the guy that he feels is the best head coach for the job for the present and for the future post LeBron James. Rich Paul himself said to Chris Haynes in an on-the-record interview, said that the Lakers should be thinking about building around Anthony Davis and with their decisions rather than LeBron James. Rich Paul said that on the record. So I think everything's pointing to we're near the end with LeBron as a Laker, possibly as an NBA player. Whether that happens this summer or whether it happens next year or the year after that, we're nearing that point. And so the Lakers have to think about their future here with their head coaching hire, but also have to think about their future with the transactions that they make. Do you really want to go all in with 3 future first-round draft picks with a 40-year-old guy who's, not quite in his prime anymore, an AD who's been fragile up until last season? I don't think you do. So I wonder with the Lakers here, if everything here is all misdirection, if the Redick stuff is all misdirection and then they go with their guy, Dan Hurley, if the Bronny stuff, they end up just not drafting Bronny. And if actually the Lakers are like, you know what? You're right. we do want a youth movement, and we want Dan Hurley to be coach of it. And LeBron, if you do want to get traded to Phoenix or you want to get traded somewhere else, go ahead. I wonder if that's the direction the Lakers are going as soon as this offseason. But if it's not this offseason, it is coming sooner than later, it appears.